have goals and aspirations that I truly believe are not their own, meaning they're still allowing their ship, if we're going to call it that as a reference, it's being captained by somebody else. And we can even think of all the classic stuff we're told: go to school, right? Get your degree, get a job, get the wife, get the kids. Now, if that's what you want to do, fantastic. But what if that's not what you want to do? What if one or two of those things are different?
Are you ready to bring your real estate game to the next level? My name is James Prendamano. I'm the CEO and founder of PreReal. And over the past 25 years, I've closed over $1 billion in transactional real estate. Each week, I'm meeting with outstanding investors, high-performing individuals, and visionaries operating in the real estate space. These are the people that are actually out there in the real estate game right now getting it done. This podcast aims at bringing anyone's game to the next level. This is the PreReal Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the PreReal Podcast. We are joined today by Bryan Casella. We've got #1 ranked real estate educator, best-selling author, and absolutely empowering epic coach. Bryan, I'm really excited to have you on today, man.
James, man, thanks for having me, dude. I'm excited. It's always good to start Monday with the podcast and get the week going, you know?
Yeah. So we've had over the years a number of different coaches and educators on, and as the founder of Team BC, your message, and the reason I was particularly excited to have you on, is you recognize and you're really upfront with, in all of your content, about, like, I can't do this stuff for you. And you talk a lot about this requires incredible intention from the individual that's seeking the coaching. We have long learned the hard way that you can take the best systems on the planet and stack them up on top of each other. If you don't have buy-in or the right mindset from the individual, they're useless.
Yep. So
at what point in your journey did that land for you? Because I know with me, it took a bit.
Great question, man. Maybe it's my background, right? I was a professional athlete before I got into real estate and jumped into the entrepreneurial world. And I always was one who demanded more from myself, right? Like I wasn't the one to come into a team. Like, I play basketball, right? I never wanted to come in and coast through the season. I wanted to be first. I demanded more of myself, meaning I wanted to be the best performer on the court. I wanted the most steals, the most blocks, the most points, right? So that seed in me was always there, because even when I got into my basketball career, I wanted to make the NBA and be top dog. I didn't just get in like, oh, you know, I'm here to get some exercise in and do it as a pastime. I wanted to be the best. So when I got into real estate and I got into entrepreneurship, it was new to me. So there was a lot of fear associated with all that and a lot of uncertainty. However, I knew, hey, I got to do the same thing I did in basketball: learn the fundamentals, learn the basics, apply them at a high level, get to work, put my head down, and then, you know, work. And I knew that was the answer, maybe because I had already established that pattern in athletics. But I knew at the end of the day, when I looked around and I looked at other people, I noticed, man, they're doing it wrong. Right? They're doing it wrong. Everybody's gossiping, everybody's talking, right? Everybody's doing everything except for the work. And I still see it a lot. And that's why I continue to preach it, because it's still missing. A lot of people are distracted. And you know, nowadays with social media, I mean, it's ridiculous. I laugh, dude, at the ads that I get telling people, oh, do this. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like people will come up with anything to not do the work. And it still just blows my mind, man.
As an athlete at that level, I can see how that was, without that discipline, you have no chance, right? You're competing against literally the best in the world. But where did it come from? Was this just a gift that you were born with, where you had great intention and discipline, or was there someplace along the way, a mentor, something?
Yeah. So there's twofold and two ways I can answer that question. When it came to real estate, I remember my first broker, when I started and got licensed, he told me early on, he said, you know what, Bryan, 95% of this business is going to be like your mindset, because that's what's going to dictate how everything goes, how you live your life, how you work, if you don't work, right? And I remember stashing that in my mind, like, yeah, whatever, old man, like, just that's all fluff, right? Because you hear about the Tony Robbins stuff and personal development, and before really knowing about it, you kind of just write it off, right? So 2 weeks into my career, I kind of hit a wall where I was working a lot, but the pressure started building, right? I'm getting rejected. I'm not getting the result. And that for me in real estate was that aha moment about 2 weeks in, because dude, I was taking massive action. I'm knocking on doors all day, making phone calls, and I'm just getting my ass kicked, right? And about 2 weeks in is when I had that aha. Now, in regards to that seed or having that in me, the only thing that I think allowed me to tap into that in my athletic career prior to getting into real estate and taking the entrepreneurial route was I was very clear about what I wanted. So when I looked at basketball in that career, nothing else existed outside of that to me, right? So when we talk purpose and clarity, even in my younger days, it was there with that. It's almost like the stubborn 6-year-old kid that tells you they want to be an astronaut. Try to talk that kid out of being an astronaut, and he's just not going to let you, right? And then we lose that when we become adults, right? When we grow up, hey, you got to face reality, right? And we lose that childlike stubbornness. So as much as we have a lot of innocence and things as a child that we need to develop, there's actually a lot of good raw material that you have in you as a human being when you're a kid. And when you reconnect with that as an adult, it's tremendously powerful. So that's literally what I carried over into real estate. When I chose entrepreneurship and real estate and sales and all the stuff that I'm doing now, I said, okay, this is it. The commitment is made. I will figure this thing out. There's no plan B. There's no, well, I can do this and fall back on this. It was like, I'm going 100% on this, burning the boats, whatever you want to call it. And that's it. And I think that has what opened up within me the vehicle to be able to do that type of stuff, because I believe this dedication that I have in discipline, it's accessible to everybody. I'm just not like a puppet, right, on strings, being distracted by everything. I've picked what I want and I'm going after it. And there's no apology about it. There's no, well, let me see what you're doing over here. No, it's just, this is it. And I chose it, right? And I think that's been lost in today's age more than anything. And I get messages all the time from people. Hey, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C. I'm like, dude, pick one. Pick one. But again, like you said, the TikTok influencers are telling them to do everything else. So everybody's just this kind of monstrosity of 20,000 different things instead of just choosing one and going with it. And I think maybe people are saying not to do that. I really don't know why it's so hard for people to pick one thing and just go with it. But I try to hammer that message to people, because I believe, to answer your question, that was the reason that I was able to tap into discipline and doing and moving like I am, is because this is what I want, this is what I'm going after, and this is what I'm dedicated to do. That's it.
I think for a lot of folks, they're afraid of knowing that they went all in on something and it didn't work. So they never, ever, I would say the vast majority of people never get to that place where they are all in on anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I really think a lot of individuals too, and this goes back, right? A lot of people have goals and aspirations that I truly believe are not their own, meaning they're still allowing their ship, if we're going to call it that as a reference, it's being captained by somebody else. And we can even think of all the classic stuff we're told: go to school, right? Get your degree, get a job, get the wife, get the kids. Now, if that's what you want to do, fantastic. But what if that's not what you want to do? What if one or two of those things are different, but you internally want to go left, but everything else is telling you to go right? Now you're conflicted. Now you're not in clarity, on purpose, and being able to move forward. You're this person who's being pulled two different ways, like the old, the horses, right? When they would torture you and kind of split you apart. So I think that has a big weight on this situation and this question that you asked me, because that, I believe, is why I was able to make it through those moments, because I chose, even getting into real estate, I remember those initial goals that I made. Those were so dear to my heart that you could have had anybody, the most respected person on the planet, come and sit down with me and try to talk me out of it. And I would have said, no way, dude, you're crazy. This is what I want. And this is what I'm going after. Like, you or no one else is going to stop me, because this is coming from me. This amount of money, this person that I want to become, these skills that I want to acquire are dear to my heart. And I really want that. Like, that's exactly what I want. So now when I'm faced with the fear and these temporary situations and roadblocks that we go over, my commitment to that long-term vision is there. And I say, okay, for me to acquire that, as uncomfortable as this is, I'm going to have to face this and get through it. There's no running away or going left or going right. I have to face this head on, again, as uncomfortable as it is, and make it through this thing, because that version of me, as an example, right? I want that so bad. And I was just so clear about that, man. So when I didn't take it for granted to do these exercises like the vision board and your business plan and how much money you wanted to make, I didn't just go through the motions doing that stuff. I would get in the lab in my little apartment and spend hours working on that stuff, saying, is this really what I want? How much money do I want? Like, what do I want the future to look like? And really making sure that it's coming from me. That way, when the ink went to paper, it was for real. And now when you look at those images that you put up and all that writing on the wall every day, it just hypes you up, because you're like, that's what I want. And you're clear about it. And I would obsess about it. The cars that I wanted, I had little pictures like in my suit pocket. I had it on my ceiling. So right when I woke up, it was the first thing that I saw. I had it on my my bathroom vanity mirror, right? I had it on the little fold mirror on the car. All the symbolism and pictures of things that I said that I wanted, and the suits that I wanted to wear, and how I imagined myself speaking in front of people, all that stuff, man. But I put the pen to paper and it was for real. And then I had reminders of that everywhere, even the background on my phone. So everywhere I looked, I was just being stimulated and reminded of exactly who I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. So for me to make it through those uncomfortable situations, as uncomfortable as it was just my duty and my obligation to do it. I didn't have a recourse.
So many of us like to tweak things, but there's a blueprint for this. Like, so many have done this before, master that process, and after years of mastery, 1 degree shifts, maybe, to tweak things to your specific circumstance. At what point did you think, okay, being a deal maker, building a team, generating this revenue is wonderful, but I want to also teach, and I want to transform lives, and I want to empower? What was that journey like?
You know, it's interesting because when I first started putting out content, I would say within a year, even though I wasn't big or well known, I started getting a lot of requests. Do you have a video series? Do you have events that you do? Do you have coaching? And I was like, no. I almost got like upset when people would ask me that. I'm like, dude, just get to work. What are you talking about, right? Like, it's not that hard. But I guess back then I was naive enough to think that everybody was wired like me, right? Or was willing to be that student like me and work that hard, because you just had to tell me once. If you said, hey, Bryan, go, I'm the teacher, go knock on 100 doors a day. By the time you finish your sentence, I was already out the door knocking doors. I wasn't going to sit there and ask you 100 questions about it, right? So it wasn't till about probably 3 years in where I said, man, I've gotten so many requests now. Fine. And it was almost like it still felt like a nuisance, believe it or not. And then I finally created, and Inman News actually ended up like making an article about this and helping me in promoting it. I created my first little like door knocking mastery product, right? I did the cold calls and the knocking, but for whatever reason, people just gravitated a lot more towards me going door to door, because I guess less people did it. So I created this little mastery course. It was about 2 hours long, nothing crazy, just on a lot of stuff that I had learned, all my vast experiences of knocking on, you know, tens of thousands of doors over those years. And it just exploded. I think I sold it for like $300, and I sold, I think, 100 copies the first month. Wow. And people were just like, man, this is amazing. I've never seen this stuff. And I was just like, wow, this was like basic stuff to me. It's not like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like some deep dive 10-hour, you know, event on door knocking. It was just 2 hours, some good stuff, you know, that I thought worked, a lot of stuff that I had experimented with, right? And I was like, wow, like apparently this really helps people. right? So around that time too, I'm doing a lot of speaking as well. When I first started speaking, I started volunteering a lot to like local boards of realtors, local universities and schools to talk about entrepreneurship and real estate, just getting my name out there and really honing my craft as a speaker. And I did that for about a year and a half. And then that's when I started being able to like charge and being invited and flown out to speak to places. And it evolved after that. But the first year and a half was me banging on doors, requesting to speak, right? I would go to even car dealerships and say, hey, you want me to talk to your guys about sales a little bit? Here's my credentials, right? So I did a lot of that in that first year to build that up. But really, it's, when I look at it, it was just this almost like, am I resisting this? Right? Because apparently me teaching is helping people and it impacts people at a level that I never thought possible. So then I started looking at becoming a better teacher and reading more books on that and doing training and coaching around that. And then it just evolved. So it took a good 3 or 4 years, man, 3 or 4 years for sure. And then after about five to six of being licensed and doing social media, that I really started to embrace the title and really put that hat on and say, okay, I'm going to now build like a coaching platform and help people like I am now. But it took a while. It took a while. And I think maybe initially I didn't think I would be interested in it. But as I started to do it and see the impact, I said, man, okay, there's something here. And even to this day, like with all the students, it's incredible to see some of the impact that you have on individuals. And even in some recent students, noticing changes they've made in a month that maybe took me a year or 2 years to have that realization, for them to have it in a month, even though they don't know it yet, is just incredibly impactful for them. So for me to recognize that, I'm like, wow, that's really cool.
What can people expect? And is this geared specifically to real estate agents?
So initially, yes. Now I have salespeople, I have other entrepreneurs. I mean, it's really evolved. I would say it's still probably 70–80% are people involved in real estate in some way, shape, and form. But because I've tiered it out and made different programs now as well, it's really just evolved into this like huge monster at this point, right? Because the higher tiers, I do more stuff on branding now, becoming a better public speaker. We do some real estate investment stuff. I mean, we do a lot. So it's evolved. But initially, yeah, it was just very nitty gritty, basic, how to build your business as a realtor, some basic sales stuff. And then from there, it really exploded after that, because I got so many people. And then the students started to evolve and get better results. So I said, man, I need to elevate my game and what I offer to match the growth that everybody's having, because even I was surprised by the results that people were getting even initially. I had people coming in who were 18, 19 years old in their first year. They make 100, 200, 300 grand selling real estate. I mean, it's just incredible.
As you're building this process out, scale is hard, man. It is.
Yeah.
Really difficult to scale. What has that journey been like? What were some of the biggest challenges you've experienced? I know for us, scale has been, it feels sometimes like it's impossible.
Yeah. Oh man, I would need a whole other hour for this, right? It's a lot, man. I think as entrepreneurs too, we tend to be somewhat, I would say most of us, right? Probably like perfectionists. We like things done our way. We know that we put our extra oomph into everything we do. We would like for our employees and everybody to operate at that super high level that we do. So I find, and this was one of my initial sticking points, was being able to effectively trust others and let go. Because even when I had my first couple hires, I would still find myself looking over their shoulder, double checking their work a little too much, past the initial phase to make sure they know what they're doing. Almost like having this deep-rooted insecurity that, no, I need to do it, right? And I think for a lot of people, that's what stops them from even considering hiring somebody, right? Another one, understanding that as I scale, especially like in my business and in a lot of businesses, my profit margins start to shrink, right? So now as the single guy who's just selling and has basic systems, now I bring on employees, I start upgrading my systems, doing more coaching, right? Scaling my business, adding more agents, adding other employees. Now those profit margins start to shrink. So my volume has to increase, right? So now, yeah, I'm replicating myself and building these people, but I need to make sure that, hey, okay, we're in the game now. It's not just me anymore. I have 4 or 5 other people on payroll, right? I'm responsible for them. So I need to make sure that they're up to speed, because if they're not performing at a particular level, I'm now paying them and I'm not getting paid, right? So there's a whole, and not just the number side of that, the psychological aspect of that too, because it was all, fun and games when I'm super profitable and it's just me, but now I have other people in place now. So psychologically, it can weigh on you, right? Am I doing a good job? Am I leading them right? So the whole mind game aspect that goes along with that too, right? And that was just for my real estate team. With my online stuff, I mean, you brought it up, right? Another way I see it is most people nowadays have a victim mentality, right? And to the point where they will sit there and argue with me how it's not their fault, and they'll state a case on how they can't be successful. And I'm sitting there saying, man, to the core, right? This person's identity, values, and beliefs at the core have been shaped to believe that they can't have success, they can't have money, they can't be a good speaker or confident, or fill in the blank with whatever they want. And if we're an adult, 18 and over, you can't point the finger anymore. You have to accept full responsibility for your life, because even if there's aspects and things about you that you don't like, it's up to you and your responsibility to change them. Yeah, I can't change my height, but I can change my belief system for sure, right? It's not my fault that if my parents raised me a certain way, conditioning me about money, yeah, that's not my fault. But the moment I turn 18, I now have full independence and sovereignty over my belief system as an adult. I can now change it, and it is my responsibility to change it. So then if I start looking externally at my life, where I live, my social circle, my finances, and I'm not satisfied, I have nobody to blame but the person who's staring back at me in the mirror. And again, that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. And this type of talk nowadays is labeled like extremist, right? Which is nuts. But all it is really just us taking, because when you do that, push aside all the emotions and stuff that you have to deal with to accept. When you accept that, you now open up a beautiful new world where now you can literally do whatever you want. You're like, wow, it is my responsibility, meaning I can go after and attain and create whatever I want. Let's go. Now the real adventure begins. Because when you allow yourself to be externally boxed, well, then you can't do anything. You forfeited all your control, to the point that I see it in the extent where people even believe they can't think a certain way. It's wrong to think that you can make a lot of money. What? So they're now governing our thoughts?
Yeah.
Like, that would be the day when you think, I'm going to be a millionaire, and then the police show up and knock on your door. Hey, were you thinking about being a millionaire? You better stop that, or we're going to put you in jail. Like, again, the way the world is going, that wouldn't surprise me, right? In maybe 50 years. But like, when you forfeit even your ability to think, ladies and gentlemen, you just, as a human being, your potential becomes zero. Because this is ultimately how far we go. And all we need to do is pick up a book and read and hear about all these people who have come up with incredible inventions and done all these things to move the human race and humankind and mankind forward, that you would look at them and say, wait, how did this person in this place come up with this idea? It just doesn't make sense. But it was all up here.
It's kind of wonky and weird, but it all starts with right here. And if you believe it and you say it, positive or negative, that becomes your reality. And the more that we have a book club in the office now, and the more and more that we're reading and we're educating ourselves, you come to realize that these icons that you put up on a pedestal and you think, oh gosh, they just had such a blessed life. Most of them crawled out of the depths of hell and failed umpteen times before they made it to where they ended up. And it was just mindset.
100%. Because, and for like a practical application of that, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because even that word now gets misconstrued, because a lot of people think, well, manifestation and law of attraction, like they literally think they can sit at home on their couch and think about getting $1 million check and it's just going to magically be in their mailbox, right? Like, and I know you're laughing, bro, but I legitimately come across people who believe that. I'm like, dude, like, you're mental. So in a simplistic way, when we talk about shifting the thought process and the mindset, that's literally, think of like a flower, right? And then you go underneath the soil. It all started with the seed. That's what we're talking about, affecting it at this level. When the seed changes, everything changes. Because now, when that thought changes, you're now going to look and view the world from a different perspective. You will think differently, your thought patterns. You will process things differently. You will interact with the world differently. Your belief system about your potential will change. Your actions will change, right? And all these things started from that base. Because the person who doesn't have the right mindset, you think they're going to be crazy enough to be an entrepreneur and knock on the door and get rejected over and over and over and over? It takes a different type of mindset to do that, that is out of the norm. But it started from that beginning portion of, I can do this. Yes. Right? If you don't have that, forget everything else. Just like James said at the beginning, we can give you all the systems and the blueprint. You won't. You'll be handed the blueprint, and then you'll give us a speech and a story as to why you can't do it. That's what will happen if you don't have the right mindset and thought process. And myself, James, and a lot of people are crazy enough, right, by society, by external, labeling, to do this stuff. But that's what it takes. And if they, outside of me, label me crazy, I'll wear it. Give me the crazy hat. Give me the crazy shirt. Because the results that I have me more fulfilled, happy than ever, right? And I want to deviate from the norm, right? By listening to this, by wanting more success and more money and personal development. You are the weirdo. You are the black sheep of the family. You are the one walking the path where everyone's pointing at you saying, oh, look at this loser. Why are you going that way? We're all going this way, bro. Right? And it comes with the territory. But with that also comes, like we were talking about, the good stuff. More money, right? More fulfillment, happiness, more better communication, right? Better world perspective, right? Being happier, viewing the world in a different light. And to have that ease in my system, because that's been the best thing, James, is just ease. I live with so much ease and peace, bro. It's amazing. I see the world around me as just this chaotic beast of a tornado, and I'm just smiling, having a good time, good vibes. And that to me is priceless.
What is is this the ultimate for you? Is this what you had thought you wanted and where you wanted Team BC to be? Is this its final iteration for you, or are you going to continue to push boundaries, or have you hit your spot?
Yeah, I'll keep pushing boundaries, like the whole concept of the real estate companies going cloud-based, I thought was great, especially with the fact that we can make revenue share and build these huge real estate networks. Not only does that support us financially, but I think it's great also for agents because they can get around some of us big hitters, get access to us and get some more education. And it'll help bridge that gap between the newbie and then getting a legitimate coach that helps them, that's more specific and more specified for them. So I like that. And then the online stuff, man, like, one thing that I can comment on that really shook things up for me is I've always been kind of outspoken, right? Just generally speaking, whether it was about something controversial or not. And that's been the interesting thing for me, and also challenging, because the last 3-4 years, I've basically had a lot of my social media platforms like stripped away from me because I basically don't side with what the big boys are saying,
Mm-hmm.
So and that's been challenging, but at the same time, I look at all the stuff that I've taught and what my foundation is, and it's affected me, but it hasn't at the same time, right? If anything, it's provided a new challenge for me to say, hey, with additional resistance, can I still break through and get my message across and still grow my real estate business and grow my coaching company? And yeah, it sucks to have some of those things taken away from you that you built, but at the same time, for me, it's like a whole new playground, right? It's just like you mentioned earlier, the Tony Robbins quote comes to my mind. He says, nothing has meaning except for the meaning that we give it, right? So I look at it from my position like, well, to me, I'm standing for and defending the truth, and the consequences that come with it, I'm willing to accept 100%, right? So moving forward, I've accepted that. I'm not going to complain about it. Let's move forward and face what we need to face again with the same spirit. And that's what I do, because I get messages all the time. Oh man, aren't you bummed out? I'm like, no, dude, I don't look at it that way. Is it unfortunate? Sure, but that's life. I mean, we were all even told, and everybody says this, right? Life's not fair. You know what I mean? Everybody says that. We were taught that. But suddenly, when, like you mentioned earlier, we get into this victim mode, we now want to use that as an excuse when even when we were younger, we accepted that life is not fair. It's not. But just because life is not fair doesn't mean that you can't be successful or achieve what you want to achieve. Again, that's up here. So, the future for me, man, is just full of endless opportunities. Do I like my spot that I'm in? Absolutely. But we want to keep pushing because even on a personal level, I'm working on moving probably in the next 6 to 12 months into a property that has more acreage. Like I want more land. I want to start being a little bit more self-sustainable, growing my own food, building my own crazy little workout complex in my house, and doing that. I want to keep evolving everything I'm doing online. I would like to get back to speaking and traveling a little bit more, but the whole situation with social media and me kind of being deplatformed from a corporate standpoint put a big block on that because a lot of companies just won't associate with me because of that. But on a more entrepreneurial level, just connecting with people on Instagram and YouTube, I've still had a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to explore that more, but it's been amazing to see the growth and kind of see how everything has evolved. Like you mentioned, it does leave a bad taste in my mouth, the TikTok influencing and all that and all the BS going around. So I almost see myself as a voice of reason, right? And I've even said that on stage many times. I'm like, when you guys are done with the gimmicks, come to me because I'll help you build your business and get with the real. But if you want to keep running around with the gimmicky stuff, please waste your time, waste your money. And then when you're ready to face reality, come knock on my door.
Well, look, the world seems to be getting to a place where we are tired of being told what we hear with our own ears and what we see with our own eyes is not reality. And people like you are emerging as absolute thought leaders. And I applaud you for it. I think it's absolutely incredibly courageous. And I, for one, and I know a lot of folks out there are very appreciative of your message. So keep it up, bro. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. Where can I point folks to learn more about the entire operation?
Yeah, bryancasella.com, just like you see my name, 1 Y and 1 S, 2 L's on the last name. That's the best place from there because everything, all my handles are at Bryan Casella. Like everything is really, in sync and synonymous. So it should be easy for you to find me. My website's the best place to get in contact with us and really check out the scope of everything we have to offer, whether it's the coaching stuff, the real estate stuff, like it's all there.
As always, folks, all the links will be in the link tree below. Bryan, I think you're an absolutely amazing human being. I love what you're doing. Congrats on all the success.
I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you. As always, everyone, please stay safe.